Hi you guys, with the light that I have left this evening, I wanted to touch on full splits again. I have done 2 videos in the past on full splits. To be honest, I haven't rewatched those videos, so it'll be interesting to see how my teaching has changed. I know that my understanding of the body has changed since then. What I imagine you want to do if you're watching this video is to do one of 2 kinds of splits. Either frontal splits, where the legs are going front and back, or the side splits or straddle splits where the legs are going out to the sides. What I would recommend before even getting into this is not focusing on what your pose looks like and instead focusing on what you're feeling in the posture. If you're interested in doing these 2 types of movements, here's what I would say helps with warming up. The muscles around your hips are very strong, and you have strong connective tissue, a lot of connective tissue structure in this area as well. So you might have to do this for a while. Your changes in flexibility might be slower and more gradual, but if we're focusing on the function of the posture and not the way it looks, then that will be okay. If you are working on frontal splits, which means one leg is going forward this way, one leg is going back this way, then we need to warm up and loosen up the muscles around the hips and legs that restrict these movements. And one of my favorites is starting in a low lunge position like this, and I can bring my hands onto my front thigh and just kind of hang out here when I feel the stretch, a reasonable stretch right here in the front of my leg that's reaching backwards, this leg. And you can be down on the floor as well. Yoga blocks can be really helpful so that depending on your proportions, you can bring your arms down here instead of having them on your thigh. I would stay here for a good 20 seconds. I would really give your muscles time to register the stretch instead of plopping into this for 5 seconds. Stay here for a good 20 seconds at least. And then after those at least 20 seconds have passed, I would switch and move into this position, which I call the runner's lunge. In yoga, sometimes we call it the half split. And now doing this, I've bent this leg, the one that's closer to the wall, and I've straightened my front leg. You might not be able to get the front leg totally straight. If you feel the stretch back here before it's straight, then just stop here. In this position, in this runner's lunge position, now I'm really focusing on this leg and I'm feeling the stretch behind here. You don't want to pull really aggressively. I've just got my heel down and I'm not dragging my heel back with me. It's staying planted, and I'm thinking about pulling my sit bone backwards a bit. I'm not tilting my hips up like this. I don't want to do that. I'm just pulling all of the muscle fibers back that way. And I would stay here for another 20 seconds. And it might look something like this versus this, right? And then you could go back again into this low lunge shape. And you might be here. If you don't have blocks, you might be down here. I find a better stretch actually for the back leg, this leg, when I'm up higher. So it could look like this. So I might do that twice. I might go here for 20 seconds, here for 20 seconds, here for 20 seconds, and then another 20 seconds. So I know I have at least warmed up the major muscles on the front and the backs of my hips. Now, if you feel a lot of resistance just doing that, a lot of stretch, I would be cautious with your progression into a deeper split. If you are ready to go forward and the stretch isn't too intense, then you could be here in this runner's lunge shape, and the blocks really do help so you can have more control. But let's just pretend we don't have those. The next step would be getting this heel forward some more. I see in classes sometimes people doing this, kind of sitting back, and I don't find that this is a better hamstring stretch. I'm really getting my back ankle to stretch and my toes. But if you want to progress your splits, go forward and not sitting backwards like this. Get your heel to go forward. If this is okay, then maybe I would push the heel forward a little bit more, a few more inches. And you can see that slowly my hips are going further towards the floor, and essentially what's happening is my back leg is being asked to do this more, right? To stretch deeper here. If I had blocks, which I prefer, I would have the blocks by my side, I would have weight in them, and then as I slid my heel forward, I could take some of the weight and the work out of my legs so I can really explore what I'm feeling in my hips and then more gradually bring weight down into them, because the more weight you have with your legs split apart further, the deeper the stretch is going to be. And so over time, you would maybe do this, just gradually slide the front heel forward, and eventually you might find that you can come pretty low to the floor, right? So you might be able to come all the way down, or maybe you can't. Maybe you've been here for a long time, just kind of hovering over the floor. To get your hips down, you're asking your legs to split this way 180 degrees. You're either going to be restricted in that ability by your joint structure or tension, muscle tightness, connective tissue strength. What might happen, let's say you're here, so you're kind of hovering a few inches. A strategy of the body to get around that and to get yourself down is to turn your hip out. Right, so you can see that my sacrum, which is here, is turning towards the camera instead of being square, which would look like this, pointing in the same direction, my hips, whereas here, my back leg is rotating out somewhat. In one of my last videos, I called that cheating because I had heard that before and I didn't quite understand what I understand now. This might be happening because of your joint structure, especially if you've been practicing splits for a long time. Your hips might turn out just because your body is trying to get around painful compression. And if you're not feeling any pain here and your hips are turned out somewhat, then I don't personally think it's a really big deal. But just being aware that if your hips turn out like this, then when you turn your chest forward, you'll be getting more of a you'll be twisting more in your lower back than someone who's more square, who doesn't need to turn, to rotate, right? So you'll just be feeling it slightly differently. Definitely not cheating. It's probably just your body trying to get around something that could be injurious to you or that's painful. If you really want to do a square version of this and your hips are turning out, or this hurts, right? If this hurts in your lower back or the twisting makes your back hurt, then I would get blocks again. Or find a way to get your arms into the floor, push down so you can again get some of the weight off of your legs and you're not asking them to split 180 degrees. You can lift up somewhat and then turn towards the front here. And that way you can access more of that direct stretch directly down the front of your leg, because this is going to change the stretch location somewhat when your leg turns open like this. So if I was here, I'm still getting a great stretch in the back of this leg here. I'm not really feeling anything in this leg. So I could, if that was important to me, use my blocks, press up, maybe with my back knee down or not, turn my hips towards square, and then just work here. And I could just hover. That's totally fine. I could be here. And you might find in your progression into splits that one side is more flexible than another and that they don't progress at the same rate. And again, we don't know exactly, but it could be your joints are just different on one side versus another, which is fairly common. Or maybe you do something that keeps the other leg, the other hip tighter or stronger or more flexible. When you've been here exploring this full splits for maybe 20 seconds or a reasonable amount of time, to get out of it, I would again use blocks if possible, because you can really put your weight into them, get the weight. You see I'm pressing into the blocks to get the weight out of my legs. Then I can start to slide this heel, the front heel, back in to where I started. And then I'm free to bend my leg and do other yoga poses or just to come out. All right, so that's full splits, pretty simple warm-ups that I think are fairly effective. They just get straight to the point, straight to the muscles that are going to be receiving most of the stretch. And now in terms of straddle splits, that stretches different muscles and it's a different movement in your hips. First of all, we're talking about warming up. So when you do the splits open to the sides instead of front to back, you're stretching primarily the inner thighs and the groin. This one is a nice one to start with, which is the butterfly. So you sit with your knees open and your feet facing each other and they can open somewhat. If your knees are really up high, you might want to sit up on something because it might be hard for you to access the stretch in here. I'll just use my block because it's right here. So I could sit on something, have my knees open, and so that's better. It makes it easier for me to sit up taller. If you feel good stretch just sitting here, then just do this. If you don't feel anything, then you add more weight by leaning your upper body forward. And you do that slowly. Again, there's no particular goal of getting your chest all the way down. You're using your upper body to add more load to deepen the stretch. And I would stay here for a good 20 seconds at least. The next way I would progress this is to straighten your legs out and then start to split them open here on the floor. So you could take one, open it out to the side, open it out to the side. This is basically what you're going to be doing in that side split. The legs just are asked to go much farther. Find as far as you can straddle your legs. Put your hands down maybe on the floor or on your own thighs or on yoga blocks. And again, you're searching for, now we're going to be stretching more straight down the backs of the legs and on the inside. So I'm going to sit up tall. Just pressing the knees down, you might feel enough stretch to sit with. If you don't, then again, you lean your upper body weight forward. And I'm going to turn to the side. So I would sit up tall and lean forward. And again, there's no goal to bring your chest all the way down. You're just trying to moderate the amount of stretch. To get into the straddle splits, this could be one of the ways you get into it. It's literally just sitting here and taking the legs apart so much that they're just in a complete straight line. Again, asking an 180-degree opening. Not everybody has that. And so the straddle splits and even the frontal splits isn't going to be an accessible pose for everybody. Like I can tell looking at my legs, they're open quite wide, but it's at an angle. It's not straight. It's not a straight line against the wall. Like if I was to turn and use the wall and take my feet against it, which is another thing you could do. I could do this, feet against the wall, kind of hang out here. You can see how much space you have left between you and full straddle splits. And I have, you know, if I went as full as I could, I mean, I'm fairly flexible in this direction, but I still have like a big block's width distance between me and the wall. You can kind of do the same thing here with your mat. Like if I pretend this is the line of the wall and I get up pretty close, I mean, you can see that there's all this space between my groin and this part of the mat, right? Like if I could just get my hips there, then I'd be in a straight straddle splits. But I'm not going to force that. I'm not going to push that there because I'm already getting the stretch here. There's no reason for me to push more. That's basically it. I would just, with any advanced posture, progress into it slowly. Along with the tips that I just gave you, the biggest takeaway from this video is it doesn't matter what it looks like. I know that we like nice straight lines. It's aesthetically pleasing, but it's not important. It's not what the postures are about. It might be what gymnastics is about. It might be a goal in something like gymnastics or in something where it's more about the form, but yoga's not about that. Yoga's not about what it looks like. It's more about what it feels like and is it serving you or not. So I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions, then let me know, leave them in the comments. And yeah, maybe we'll make another splits video at some point. Maybe we'll have more to add, maybe not. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.